you are watching or listening to Jade Emerald Green. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and follow so that you are staying connected with the daily content arrivals that are made just for you. Thank you. Good morning. Today is Sunday, July 20th, 2025, and this is the weekly collective tarot and oracle reading on Jade Emerald Green. So before we get into any sort of astrological transits or get into these cards and what they're saying for us this week in our day-by-day forecast, let's get into some encouraging words to connect all of this together. I am pulling from today's book in question, The Wisdom of Creating Happiness and Peace, Volume 2, Human Revolution by Daisaku Ikeda. It's been a big read for me. I read it pretty much every day and try to take the encouragement and live by it as much and as best as I possibly can, because it is a wealth of wisdom by this Buddhist philosopher, Dr. Daisaku Ikeda, and try to ensure that it aligns with my values, and my practice of Nichiren Buddhism also helps inform me as a reader. So I would like to just impart a quick passage that I was reading earlier this morning, and I hope we find it to be very helpful and inspiring. So this is coming from chapter 17, Making the Most of Each Day. Passage 17.1, Leading Fulfilling Lives Free of Regret. So I'm on page 212 where it begins. While strolling together with a group of young women's division representatives this morning, I discussed the subject of the best way to live. Nichiren Daishonin, who is a 13th century Buddhist sage, writes, quote, the purpose of the appearance in this world of Shakyamuni Buddha, or the historical Buddha Siddhartha Gautama, the Lord of Teachings, lies in his behavior as a human being, end quote. Our behavior as a human being. What kind of behavior leads to a life of happiness and wisdom? The Daishonin also teaches, quote, you must not spend your lives in vain and regret it for 10,000 years to come, end quote. He is saying that we must not waste this precious existence, that we must not live in such a way that we are left with eternal regret. It is, therefore, important that we choose a life of lasting fulfillment over one of shallow self-indulgence. No matter how fun-filled or entertaining your life may seem, without a sense of fulfillment, it cannot be truly called happy. A life without any real purpose, which leaves you feeling only empty, is an unhappy one. It is also important that we choose self-improvement over pleasure. Those committed to self-improvement have depth. They are attractive. They have hope. Likewise, we need to choose serious effort over resignation, to dare rather than retreat. Those who do so brim with energy and vitality. Acting with compassion instead of arrogance, with courage rather than fear, in such behavior lies the essence of Buddhism. In the same spirit, I call on you to choose progress over stagnation, unity over disharmony, joy over pessimism, action over indecision, and optimism over despondency. I think that is a really great passage, and I think it'll make sense as to why I wanted to share that as we go into these astrological transits and these card pulls for this week. So what is going on in our planets and stars, okay? Right now, the moon is in Gemini. So that is our intellectual world, our thoughts, meeting our emotional world. So with this, it is a great time to engage in positive expression of emotions, healthy expression of emotions, to be able to speak or to write out the things that we are feeling inside in a way that is impactful and for progressing for our lives. We also have Venus in a weird position with Pluto. Now, Venus is in Gemini, Pluto is in Aquarius, but is currently under retrograde activity. So what does that mean? Well, if you know the Outkast album Aquemini, that symbolizes the positive synastry between Aquarius and Gemini. Well, with Aquarius being in retrograde, that can actually stir up some disunity. Actually, more specifically, we may be dealing with either within ourselves or within the people or persons, people, or entities within our lives, matters of jealousy and possessiveness. And we may be having to contend with that and the many forms in which it comes up. Mind you, this is also happening in the early days of this Mercury retrograde here. So matters of miscommunication, things that may not usually be something that is like very contentious, may end up being way more contentious than it would normally be under this circumstance, because we are Mercury retrograde in Leo on top of this challenging transit with Venus sesquiquadrate Pluto. Now, we also are pairing with this with the moon. Not the moon, baby. We already talked about the moon, but Mars in Virgo conjunct the South Node. So Mars deals with our action. South Node deals with things that we're, needing to let go. So that stubborn tendency that one, whether within ourselves or outside of ourselves, those persons, those entities, those people may have that are, dealing with situations and actions and tactics that are really no longer serving our growth. We are meant to let those things go. Those are being also brought to light today. And so having the moon in Gemini is a really good way for us to, be able to work these things out, to reassess, and to be able to let go what is no longer serving us. So, deal with the jealousy, deal with the stubbornness, deal with the negative emotions that may either be within or coming your way with, a sense of compassion for yourself, so that you're not being caught up in the things that, are taking up your time, when that time could definitely be used to something that is more toward enhancing one's growth. So, with that being said, if this is your first time listening or watching these weekly Tarot and Oracle Collective readings, what we are doing is a situation, action, outcome spread that is stylized and expanded to meet the needs of what, we ask today and the ways in which we ask today. So what does that mean? Well, our situation card is always going to be worded with the question, what the fuck are we doing here? Because sometimes that's what you need to ask. You need to know what the fuck you're doing here, okay? And today, we are with the Three of Swords. This comes as no surprise, as we are once again in that Mercury retrograde in Leo, and retrograde always puts an acute magnifying glass on the things that are that need our attention, that need that type of assessment as to like what the fuck is going on here. Disappointment, loss, contention, heartbreak. Okay, one thing that whenever the Three of Swords comes about, that I must point out, that while the image clearly depicts that there is a heart involved, so our heart, when we think of the heart or we see the heart, that tends to represent our emotions, right? But this is in the suit of swords, and swords represents our mindset, our mentality, the way we think. So the question when the Three of Swords comes about is always going to be it's not so much how we feel or what we are feeling, but what are we, of course I dropped the card. What are we going to do about how we feel? What are we thinking about how to deal with these things? What is our strategy? And I use strategy in the most general sense here. I'm not talking about anything necessarily elaborate so much as just simply having a clear path. What is our path to move forward, right? So this is the situation. It's not ever going to feel easy when the Three of Swords is coming about, but if we are one to accept the situation as it is, it becomes easier to configure what we're actually able to do about it. So what the fuck are we supposed to do about it, right? That's the next question. That's our action card, our recommended action card, in fact. So, and we have the King of Swords. Okay, so even through matters that have brought about disappointment, loss, heartache, heartbreak, we can still find the path to self-mastery from within, the shift of perspective that we need when we experience these challenging situations. We are still able to utilize these situations to make the best of what our strategy is, or our path is. It can lead us to the divine within our sense of thought, our realm of the brain here. So with the king, or with any sort of world card, king and queen, we must acknowledge that heavy is the head that wears the crown. There is just as much responsibility as there is power when it comes to these cards coming about. So we must, keep that in mind, that if we want to, take this action and see the greater self come about, that, we have to take actions that are going to actually lead us to that path. We're going to, need to change our world within if we want to see change coming from without, okay? If you want to change the world, you got to change yourself, okay? And that goes without exception. It's just one of those laws of life, right? If you want to change your environment, you have to change yourself. But that changing of self starts from how you think. Sometimes we may feel justified in how we feel, but what we do about it is the determining factor in, if we're on this path to, making change within the kingdom, so to speak, which is our immediate world, our personal sense of like mission in this life, or if we fall toward the path of destruction and, separation and things of that nature. So remember, mind over matter. You can achieve anything that it is that you set your mind to, even in the midst of heartbreak, disappointment, loss. Okay? So in dealing with this situation, we also have to ask, where is the fuckery, okay? What should we avoid, essentially? And that, in this case, my friends, is the Wheel of Fortune, okay? Sometimes it can be hard leaving things to chance, but sometimes that's better than trying to force a fate upon a situation, right? Just because we don't like how it's making us feel, okay? So that's the how, in effect, in a negative sense, right? When we don't act with enough faith, or if we don't act in good faith, right? Then we are essentially enabling us to be on a path towards deception, destruction, rejection, projection, okay? I'm not trying to sound like the Rainbow Coalition here with Jesse Jackson and all that, but it is important that we have confidence that things will work out, even amidst this challenging time, right? So sometimes less is more. And that's what I'm getting from this Wheel of Fortune, especially in this position of where's the fuckery, because even if you try to push things, force things, sometimes it can backfire. So make sure that you are just sometimes, having a little faith in things and focusing on your internal world, that internal shift, that King of Swords energy, as opposed to, forcing a fate without doing the work to actually make the change that you seek to bring about. Alrighty, so what happens when we do what the fuck we're supposed to do? Okay, what is our likely outcome based on our recommended action with the King of Swords, right? Well, if we do what the fuck we're supposed to do, we get to move forward, okay? And moving forward may not always feel the best, because sometimes you have to let things go in order to have that ship cross the sea of suffering, right? But if you're allowing yourself to do that and you rely on your sense of intuition as represented by the moon, you know, I'll bring this a little bit closer, because in the Six of Swords, you don't really see like a clear face. You know, these people are facing sideways there, you know, essentially facing towards the future, right? So they're moving forward, okay? Sometimes you gotta let people see the back of your head, okay? And in the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith tarot deck, that's exactly what you see. I know this is more stylized and have them looking right toward the future and everything, but even in the traditional RWS, they are moving forward, essentially. So, you know, take the lessons that, that's our action card, sorry. I mean, using the strategy of the King of Swords, take the lessons that you're learning from the Three of Swords, right? Our situation, our disappointment, our loss, our heartbreak, right? Take the lessons from there and get to that other side of the shore so that you can see what it is that you need, that is meant for you on the other side. There's growth on the other side. There's abundance on the other side. So give yourself that, okay? Because if not, then we're made to ask, what the fuckery, right? We got the Eight of Wands here. If we were trying to force fate, which we are recommended not to do, by the way, again, then things can get out of hand fast. This Eight of Wands here represents rapid movement. And rapid movement is good when we are ready for it. But when we are spinning out of control, trying to control things that we really shouldn't be, and it really is not meant for our control, then yeah, things can just get out of hand and, you know, worse than what you intended. So with that being said, just let things be how they are. You know, focus on yourself. Serenity prayer, do the serenity prayer if you know that. God grant me the serenity to, you know, accept the things I can't change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, okay? So, as always, we bring a clarifier into our reading. That is because context matters. And we have the Four of Swords here. So our mind needs to be at rest. Like I said, less is more, right? Look, how many of us wish we were in bed right now? Just resting, just letting things be, right? And getting the recharge that we need so that we can go forward with ever stronger movement on another day or at another time, right? When we ignore our need for rest, when we are not honoring our sacred peace and grace, you know, then our world gets disrupted, right? So, like, really, like, invest in that. Invest in your sacred rest and your sacred peace as much as you invest in your ability to problem solve, your ability to have mind over matter, right? Because this is all where it's coming from. When we ignore the need for this, then all of this comes about, right? So, and what am I saying? What's this? What's that? When we ignore our need for rest, we're not pumping the brakes to prevent certain things that, you know, lead to disappointment, heartbreak, and loss. Not all of these things are inevitable. Some of these things are preventable, but if we're not seeing the signs, then, you know, we end up in situations. But, you know, necessary, unnecessary, if it happens, it happens. And you have to be in full acceptance of your situation in order to get to a point where you can rest, right? Where you can move forward, okay? So that's our tarot breakdown for today. Basically asking what's happening this week, and we'll touch base momentarily with our day-by-day forecast for the next 7 days. But right now, we're going to get into these oracle readings. So what is supporting, you know, the message coming from our tarot spread today? Well, we're going to start with our Prism Oracle spread. We have the red card of passion and the yellow card of determination. So while we're being called to, you know, pump the brakes on things and accept that less is sometimes more, that doesn't mean that our passion should die out for the things that we care about, okay? We can always redetermine to be closer to the path of what our passion is seeking out. When that fire seems to die out sometimes because of that Three of Swords energy, that doesn't mean that you pack up everything and go home and give up. Never give up. Know that your passions are leading you to your higher purpose. Know that your sense of determination is what's going to get you there, okay? Everything depends on these two, okay? So, once again, you're going to have challenges, you're going to have roadblocks, but you have the ability to clear all of that with your King of Swords, your shift in perspective, right? Your moon in Gemini, right? Utilizing that moon in Gemini to your advantage, right? So, yes, as our Three of Swords embodies the Venus, Pluto, and the Mars conjunct their South Node, right? We have to know how we're going to combat these things, right? We have Mae West coming in to save the day right on time with our Celebrity Spirit Oracle. It is sexy and sassy time. Sometimes it takes a little bit of flair, you know, to embody your kingly energy, right? This King of Swords that we're talking about, you know, it has to come with a little bit of style. You know, nobody can be you the way you can be you. That's what makes everyone unique, okay? So, Mae West, if you have heard on previous readings, you know that she is an OG Hollywood actress, was an amazing, not just, you know, dramatic actress, but a comedian. Like, she knew how to make people laugh, and she knew how to, you know, own her divine feminine in a way to, you know, lead her to like bigger and better things, even over the course of her long career over the decades, right? I think she passed when she was like maybe like 89, like late 80s, you know, and like she paved the way for so many other, you know, female comedians and, you know, actresses to be who they were, you know, all the greats that we think of from like coming from the 20th century to this century. So we need to embrace our Mae West. Also, I would suggest like just type in Mae West and like look up like movie clips, you know, because it's kind of funny when we think about like how Hollywood, how movies, how they used to talk in Hollywood movies like back in the day. It's like, see, like, so you're getting a lot of that from her. But you know, if you look past that, what you see is such a strong force, and that's what we have when we are able to embrace our sexy or embrace our sassy. We're not taking any shit, you know. While we're not trying to force fate, we also just can't roll over and just take anything or take any mess that someone's trying to bring to our door just because they don't know how to embrace their sexy, embrace their sassy, and come at, you know, the other in a respectful way, you know. So Mae West is the best at this time. And as we're moving into our more salacious portion of the oracles, we got the What's the Tea and the Broken Mirrors here. So I want to place this together because we got somebody in our environment, some people, some person, some entity that is hooked. Now, if you notice, this also mentions about the ex, unfaithful, love triangle, ex in question. You know, I am by no means limiting this aura, these poolings, or these readings, these pools, to romantic relationships. Like even with the Three of Swords, like you're gonna experience heartbreak without even ever being in love with whomever is causing that, right? This could be friendships, this could be business relationships, this could be, you know, something that is just close to what our passions and our determinations are, right? There's an unhealthy element that needs to be removed. Now, whether that's within you or within the entity, the persons, people that you're dealing with, it's important to name it for what it is and to treat it like how it needs to be. In order to address the situation with radical acceptance, but to overcome it with outstanding colors, you know, name it for what it is and put it in its place without forcing fate. This all starts with yourself, knowing what you're willing to and not willing to accept, you know? That May West, like, once again, you're not taking no shit. Each of us deserves the best, right? We have to treat ourselves better, and we have to let people know if they're not treating us right, or if they're engaging in unhealthy obsessions, or, you know, that's that Venus sexaquadrate Pluto again. That's that jealousy, that's that possessiveness that we're dealing with, you know, particularly today, but also with the transits this week. You know, on the 22nd, we have Sun and Leo coming up. So that's dealing with the ego. With the Sun, that's like, Leo is ruled by the Sun. And then Mercury's still, right, Mercury retrograde in Leo. On top of that, we have the new moon in Leo on the 24th. So with all of that, like, that's a lot of fire energy. That's a lot of, like, ego-centric things. And that's often why people get hooked, because they have an unhealthy sense of ego. They're not seeing themselves clearly. So, look, watch out. Yes, watch out, but don't be so afraid that you're not doing what you need to do to advocate for yourself, to not abandon yourself. All of that's just really important, y'all. So make sure you do what is needed to break that unhealthy connection. Because if we go into our dark confessions, we have, I'm seeing someone, but I am not ready for you to know about them yet. Once again, this is not limited to just romantic elements. Well, this may very well be the case, right? Even with that hooked energy, that X energy, you know, we may be experiencing a form of narcissism from some entities, somebody, some persons. We may be experiencing codependency from within ourselves or from without. Like, just shake that shit the fuck off. Like, if someone's not really ready to be upfront with you, and they're not ready to be radically accepting about the situation, or, you know, just be forefront, then that's obviously somebody, some entity, some people you don't need in your lives, right? So honor yourself, okay, more before you do anything else, and be in alignment with your higher power. I mean, faith goes a long way to helping us embrace that King of Swords energy so we can move forward, right? Moving on to our angelic connections here. A sign you've never noticed before grabs your attention. It may take a little while to decode the message, but your intuition tells you it's important. So, for example, start your adventure today is on this billboard inside of this card. But those signs that you may need to see aren't limited to just as you're driving by something, or you're taking the bus past something and you see a billboard. Signs are everywhere. So the important thing is that you pay attention. Your universe, your spirits, your ancestors, they're all trying to reach out to you to let you know that your path is sacred. The strategy in which you take has to be one that is allowing you to receive these messages. That's why faith is important. When you let faith, you know, take you to the places you need to go, you won't have to worry about forcing fate, okay? Yes, we do have the ability to change anything that we want to change, but sometimes we got to look at the signs first to help us, let us know where we're going, because those signs ultimately are a confirmation for the great things how we feel inside about ourselves, right? So for our African goddess rising oracle, we have Isis, as the Greeks would call her, all right? And it's all about surrender. Divine surrender, that's the same thing as faith. Letting go of the things that no longer serve us, just like this Mars conjunct the South Node. Letting go of the things that will not take us to the next level. Iset lets us know that we can release those things to the divine, and in return we receive the gifts that we are always looking for, that we are always searching for. Okay? So make sure you practice surrendering. It is good for the soul. And as you may or may not know, Iset or Isis is one of the Greek and Nubian goddesses, most foundational ones. So, this concept of surrendering is something that has been in practice for millenniums, So, now we are here into our divine timing oracle portion of the reading, and based off of how the other cards that came about, the question I asked was, when, if at any point, will we experience either the internal or external sense of vindication that comes from our experience that is bringing us disappointment, loss, or heartbreak? Now, this may take some time, but it's on the way. Let's check again at the fall for what, we're experiencing at this point, okay? In this hot Leo summer. Not all these things last forever. This too shall pass. Every experience that we have ultimately can work for our benefit. So give these challenges that you're experiencing some time, because it's in the works, right? I had to find the context for this so that we are, utilizing our sense of faith. You gotta have faith. So that is our general overview for this coming week, but we do have our day-by-day forecast here. And starting with today, we have the Three of Pentacles. Now, Three of Pentacles, in its exalted state, means teamwork, good collaboration toward a tangible goal or toward material assets that will benefit our sense of expansion, okay? So when it's in its exalted state, this is a great card because you're not only, embodying these ideas within the self, you're working with others, right? And three's company is great, but when this is in its shadow side, then it either means that there's some trouble ahead in a project that, you're working on. Given that it's Mercury retrograde, expect some delays, expect some hiccups, all right? This could also mean collusion in its shadow side, that people are conspiring against one so that they can have an unfair advantage or create a narrative that it would be wholly unfair to the other. So be mindful of, who's around you. Engage in intuition expansion practices so that you have a larger or a greater sense of like who is around you. Are they for you? Are they not really for you? Like I said, there's a reason or a season for every person that's in your life. So the Three of Pentacles is very symbolic toward that. So that is for today, Sunday, July 20th. Moving into Monday, the 21st, we have the 10 of Cups. 10 represents completion, both within the self and the other. So for our cups, that means our sense of emotional fulfillment. We'll experience some sort of validation on this day. 10 of Cups here is also a great card for just when you're winning and you see other people winning, like that warming your heart, right? So the shadow side of this is, the what we're experiencing here with that Venus-Pluto connection again, like people hating, people engaging and not, wanting to see the other win, not the Vin Diesel family, it's not giving that, it's giving the opposite of that. So, be mindful once again of, these cycles that we seek to complete where we are, wanting to have our wishes fulfilled, right? And the 10 of Cups and share that with other people. That very well may be possible, but we also have to be mindful of what is you know, around us in our group dynamics, right? Within our family, within our friends, you know, within our business, within our work situation. You get what I'm saying? So, you know, but this, I actually get like a really much more of the exalted state rather than the shadow side for this coming Monday, tomorrow. So just be on the lookout for your blessings, I would say, with cautious optimism. For Tuesday, the 22nd, we have the Empress. Now, the Empress is that's materialization, or as many of the kiddos call it, manifestation. You know, of the divine feminine in the actual world, you know, as opposed to the High Priestess, where High Priestess deals more of like the divine feminine and, you know, what has yet to be revealed in secret knowledge, secret wisdom. Excuse me. The Empress is the divine feminine revealed and in this world, acting within this realm, this universe. And so, yes, please always embrace the Empress, right? Even in the shadow side where we may be dealing with feelings of unhappiness or, you know, wishes that yet to be granted, because ultimately this is a card of royalty. This is a card of, you know, the result of doing the work and, you know, kind of seeing the other side. You're going to see glimpses of greatness on Tuesday. Embrace that as well. Yes, cautious optimism continues, but, you know, why I always like the Empress is because the Empress has the energy to overcome any and all things. She's the Empress after all. She's the queen. So embrace that. Moving into Wednesday, what being the 23rd? Okay, we got the 10 of Wands. So in order, you know, to have that divine feminine energy, or just that divine energy in general, you got to know how to delegate. You can't be taking all these bundles of sticks, walking across the desert to get to the destination, as you can see, trying to get home with all of that stuff. Know how to spread the responsibilities and the tasks that are needed to be done with relations to your ideas, your passions, your creativity, as exuded in the Suit of Wands. Like, get them going. Like, know that you can build a team around you that can support you and can help you achieve your goals. With a bit of discernment and some patience, this could be a lot easier of a load to bear. So find your team. And as a reminder, because this is retrograde of the Mercury, right, in Leo, plan, but take the time before executing, right? Because this is a time of review or reassessing, okay? So starting new endeavors right now is, you know, I would advise more caution. Okay, so that is Wednesday, the 23rd. Thursday, the 24th, is bringing us with the 9 of Swords. Okay, so we may have encountered a pretty heavy day the day before. It may cause us to have some doubts coming, but maybe things are heavier in our head than what they really are in reality, right? Or maybe it just as it is, and it's just heavy all around. But with the 9 of Swords, we are reminded that even amidst challenges, that it is through changing our nightmares into our greatest, wildest dreams, we have the ability to do that through our path. In doing so is where we can break through from this internalized negativity. It's important to not let other people's problems become your problems, right? And in this world, we're going to deal with people who are committed to misunderstanding us. And I know that also may be a source of grief. But if one is able and willing to see past that, then you can break through. Like, these swords, ultimately, they're not hitting the person in this card. So, you know, though you may be reminded of those who are trying to win at all costs, as pictured with the 5 of Swords in that background there hanging on that wall. Don't let it get the best of you. Friday the 25th, we have the Three of Wands. We have to look towards the future. The future can be bright if we, put our eyes to it and see what we are truly wanting to envision. We got to be specific with our prayers. We have to be specific with our vision boards, or however we are trying to see through, to this next phase of our lives. So let the Three of Wands invite your wildest dreams into that realm of like manifesting and making your reality happen. This is a great card to have, Even though I recited the Serenity Prayer, there are things in this life we cannot control, but this is where we focus on the things we can, okay? And finally, for Saturday the 26th, we have the Four of Pentacles. So this is guarding the things that are sacred to us, like our external assets, money, our goals. Like I've recently gone through this and, did the reading of, emphasizing that in this specific iteration, this is a person who's white knuckling their pentacles, their dollars, in their hand. And, it can imply a scarcity mindset. But the good thing with the Four of Pentacles is that we are wanting to hold on to things. Certain things we may let go. We may be a little bit frivolous in nature, and we have to be mindful of those things. Spirit is telling me about guarding your memories. This may be a great day to, engage with those who are closest to us and be able to make something new, make something memorable. So guard those things, not just, your coins, so to speak. Your coins can be in the currency of family, can be in the currency of people that you care about as well. So that is our week ahead, day by day breakdown. So thank you again for watching the weekly collective tarot and oracle reading on Jade Emerald Green. If you're liking these weekly in-depth dives, then make sure you're tuning in each and every Sunday to TikTok, YouTube for these weekly in-depth downloads. It's too long to upload onto Instagram, so let that be that. But I do appreciate being of service to you in this way each and every Sunday. And make sure you check back every day as we kind of get a little bit more into these daily, forecasted tarot reads, along with our oracle pulls for those days to connect with that. So once again, yes, we have the sun coming into the sign of Leo on the 22nd. We have the new moon in Leo on the 24th. Mercury retrograde is in Leo right now. Moon is in Gemini, and that's going to keep moving forward. So we'll touch base on the transits of the moon as we go day by day. Yeah, nothing in life is worth having without a good challenge, but it lies in our behavior as a human being and the way in which we overcome those said challenges. So I hope that the passage in the beginning is helpful as well. That's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you guys again for watching the weekly collective tarot and oracle reading on Jade Emerald Green. And I'll see you on the next one. Ciao.